Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Hunter Pratt. I'm the Multimedia Specialist at the Institute of Child Nutrition. We're going to give a few seconds to allow everyone to enter into the webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded, and at the end of the webinar, you will see a screen pop up that's going to ask you to take a survey. If you would, click continue, and it's going to redirect you to SurveyMonkey, and you'll be able to take a survey at the end of today's webinar. If you have a question after each presentation, there is a Q&A button you can click on your webinar control panel, and you will be able to ask a question to the panelists. Go ahead and click that button, enter your question, and then we'll get to those as they come through. May not have time to answer all questions, but we'll get to those as best we can. All right, LaWanda, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. LaWanda Morris here with the Institute of Child Nutrition, and I would like to welcome everyone to the February 2020 School Nutrition Star webinar on Success with School Breakfast. During today's webinar, all attendees are muted, but there will be time for questions following the presentations. So if you have a question, please type it into the question box on your screen. And as Tom Hunter said, we will try to get to as many of those questions as possible. But please be aware that due to our time constraints, every question may not get answered during the webinar. Individuals who have registered will receive an email 24 hours after the conclusion of the webinar. The email contains the webinar recording link as well as a link to the evaluation survey. Please follow that link to complete the survey. Then you will also receive your certificates within 48 hours. To assist in meeting the unique training, technical assistance, and professional development needs of school nutrition professionals, ICN has launched the School Nutrition Star Initiative. STAR stands for Strategies, Trainings, Action Plans, and Resources. It was created to assist school nutrition professionals in developing goals and best practices to improve program administration and operations. The School Nutrition Star program offers a multitude of elements, including face-to-face workshops, virtual instructor-led trainings, webinars, and spotlight success stories. The Institute of Child Nutrition collaborated with USDA to host monthly STAR webinars, which offer training, real-life strategies of program implementation, and best practices to incorporate into action plans and/or goals. Training topics, free resources, and educational materials are also highlighted to assist school nutrition professionals with navigating through the enhanced responsibilities of school nutrition operations. The Institute has created a website for all of the materials and resources that are specifically related to the webinars. You can find this information at theicn.org/star. Thank you all so much for joining today's webinar on Success with School Breakfast. On March 2nd, 2015, USDA's Food and Nutrition Services, FNS, published the Professional Standards for School Nutrition Professionals. The rules require a minimum amount of annual training hours for all state directors of school nutrition programs, state directors of distributing agencies, school nutrition program directors, managers, and staff. Required training topic areas will vary according to your position and job requirements. The topics covered in today's webinar fall under two key areas: nutrition and communications and marketing. They also meet the USDA Professional Standards Code 1200, which is nutrition education, and 4120, which is program promotion. The panelists for today's webinar are, as I mentioned earlier, myself, Dr. LaWanda Morris. I will be presenting the first part of our webinar. I am currently the Associate Director of Grants here at ICN. I received my PhD in Educational Leadership in addition to other graduate degrees in curriculum and instruction from the University of Mississippi. I have over 20 years of experience in K-12 curriculum and workforce development. I'm also the host of ICN's podcast series, iBites, which offers monthly episodes focused on various aspects of child nutrition all related to the mission of ICN. In my spare time, I enjoy spending time with my family, baking, and traveling. Our second panelist is Ms. Janine Rios, Senior Program Manager for School Breakfast at Share Our Strength. Janine serves as one of the No Kid Hungry nutrition experts who develops resources and tools and provides technical assistance and training around expanding access to school breakfast program. Prior to this, Janine led the youth programs at the Cooper Institute in Dallas and managed the Healthy Schools program for the Alliance for a Healthier Generations Texas team. She also led the Graduate Student Council at Texas Woman's University while studying for her PhD in health sciences. So my apologies, Janine. I called you Miss Janine. That'd be Dr. Rios. She holds a master's degree in public health from Loma Linda University in California and an undergraduate degree in nutrition and clinical dietetics from the University of California at Berkeley. In her spare time, she volunteers with various organizations where she can use her talents to serve others. She also enjoys spending time with her daughter, Ayana, and playing with her dogs, Howard and Buddy, and staying active. Our final panelist for today is Dana Bing. Dr. Bing is the Nutrition Services Assistant Director with the Richmond County Schools in Augusta, Georgia. Dr. Bing has a BS in Nutrition Sciences from Cornell University and a doctorate in Chiropractic Sciences from Life University. In addition to 11 years of classroom teaching experience, he holds ServSafe and K-12 OneSource software certifications. His hobbies include golf, tennis, and playing piano. After today's webinar, attendees will be able to identify useful strategies for promoting school breakfast. So let's get the webinar going by first talking about some of the benefits of school breakfast. Breakfast actually jumpstarts the brain by providing fuel for learning. It has been shown that students who eat breakfast are more well-behaved, they're ready to learn, and emotionally they have decreased anxiety, depression, and hyperactivity. Studies have also concluded that children who eat school breakfast reach higher levels of achievement in reading and math and actually score higher on standardized testing. According to the Food Research and Action Center, also known as FRAC, students who skip breakfast or eat a partial breakfast simply do not perform at the same levels as those who eat a full breakfast meal. When students eat a complete breakfast meal, they make fewer errors in math and are more alert. By eating breakfast, the students can concentrate better and their memory is improved. In addition, students who eat school breakfast are more likely to maintain a healthy weight. With the widespread knowledge of the importance of breakfast, it is still a challenge, tongue twister, for many students to eat breakfast. Fortunately, schools provide a powerful place to feed our students healthy meals. So today we're going to provide you a variety of ideas to how to help support participation in your school's breakfast program. To qualify for reimbursement, breakfast meals must meet the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act nutrition standards and meal pattern requirements. However, the menu choices are at the discretion of the school food authorities. Offer versus serve, which many of us know as OVS, is one option that schools can use. OVS is an approach to menu planning and meal service that helps reduce food waste and costs while maintaining the nutritional value of the meal. As outlined in the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, and also as required by the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, breakfast must provide 1/4 of a child's daily needs for protein, calcium, iron, vitamins A and C, and calories. Schools are to offer 3 food components daily, and those are fruits, grains, and fluid milk. They must also offer at least 4 food items representing the above food requirements. Under OVS, students can select all components offered or may decline components if desired. However, the students must select 3 food items, including at least half a cup of fruits, to have a reimbursable breakfast. Studies do show that children who are offered food choices are more likely to eat the foods they enjoy rather than to throw the food away. It can seem to be a very daunting task to determine if meals are reimbursable. This is why it is so important for cashiers to be trained daily about the reimbursable meal options. USDA provides a simple checklist to use in determining if breakfasts are reimbursable under OVS. There's these 3 questions. 1, does the meal offered consist of at least 4 food items? 2, does the meal offered include the minimum required amounts of fruits, grains, and milk? And 3, does the meal selected by the student contain at least 3 food items, including at least half a cup of fruit and/or vegetable? And if the answer to each of these questions is yes, then the breakfast meal is reimbursable under OVS. USDA provides this checklist along with other great tips and information in the OVS School Breakfast Program tip sheet, which you see here on screen. It, along with a wealth of other resources, can actually be found on Team Nutrition's School Breakfast Materials website, which is located at the bottom of the screen there, www.fns.usda.gov/TN/SBP-materials. And again, that will provide you access to this tip sheet along with a wealth of other resources for the National School Breakfast Program. Now I'm going to turn it over to Janine Rios with Share Our Strength. Janine?
And here we go. Thank you, Luanda, so much. Welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name again is Janine Rios, and as Luanda mentioned, I've been working for Share Our Strength. Just want to let everyone know, although it is my 3rd week on the job, I have been working in this space for about a decade, so we will be able to get into some of the details of some best practices of how to offer breakfast. Today we're going to talk about, and I'm going to cover breakfast after the bell and some of the most effective strategies to successful programming. And again, as Ms. Luanda mentioned, my role is to provide resources, tools, and technical assistance and training around how to implement these programs. So sometimes there's challenges at the schools, and we don't want everyone to have to reinvent the wheel. We have those resources. We do this every day. We want to make sure that we're here to support schools who are interested in implementing these programs. So I'm going to be talking about breakfast after the bell, why it's important, and I'm going to break down the 3 breakfast after the bell models that we do the best job of increasing access to school breakfast so that more students can get fed. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about No Kid Hungry. And basically, No Kid Hungry is a campaign by Share Our Strength. Our mission is to end hunger and poverty, and we do that through proven effective campaigns. We like to connect people who care to ideas that work. And as many of you are aware, there's more than 11 million children in the United States that live in food insecurity. What we know here at Share Our Strength is that one of the most effective ways to help families and children is through federal nutrition programs. So what we do is we like to support those programs in their access, in implementation, so that schools can take advantage of implementing successful programming. So we work to increase access, as I mentioned, to the federal meal programs. We specifically focus on breakfast, after-school meals, and summer meals. We work to focus on problem solving and working with local partners on the ground to identify and eliminate the barriers for kids in schools. So you might be wondering in which states we are. Are we in your state? And you'll see by the map here that No Kid Hungry has an impact in every state across the country. What exactly do we do? What does our assistance look like? We provide monthly webinars, technical assistance, and a variety of resources. For example, we have content experts who can provide partners and schools with the support they need to successfully implement these programs. At the bottom, you'll see that you can subscribe to our newsletter on the Center for Best Practices website, and there's a hyperlink here. That way you can get access to these resources, and it's all at no cost. Before we get started into Breakfast After the Bell, we have a poll for everybody. So everybody should see the poll now. I'm just giving people time to vote. So the question is, can breakfast after the bell be used as a tool to reduce chronic absenteeism among students? Please choose the best answer. And the majority of you chose the correct answer, which is yes, 65%. But the very best answer would be that serving breakfast after the bell can reduce absenteeism by an average of 6 percentage points at your campuses. So great job, everyone. And I have some new research that the Share Strengths has conducted that we're going to talk a little bit about during this presentation. So what we see is that traditional school breakfast program, although it's a wonderful program, it's oftentimes underutilized by the kids who need it the most. We know that about 22 million children in the United States rely on free or reduced price lunches, and they're also eligible for free breakfast. However, as many as 3 million children are not getting the breakfast that they need. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those challenges. I'm sure some of you have come across some of these. Traditional breakfast, which is served before the school day, starts in the cafeteria using the traditional model. It meets the needs of some students, but it may not meet the needs of all students. And as you'll see here, some of the barriers are students not being able to arrive at school on time. Maybe they're just running late. There's just different challenges getting out the door, as we all know. And so kids who rely on that meal, if they're late, they're going to miss that meal. It also can be a stigma in many districts or many schools where the students who are eating breakfast are kind of tagged as those students who need that free meal. And so students will go out of their way not to go to breakfast just to avoid that stigma, even though they are hungry. So there's a few other reasons and challenges here. One other that I'll mention is in high school and middle school, a lot of those students are just kind of waking up. And so when they get up, they're not really ready to eat yet. So they may just be getting ready and rolling out of bed. By the time they get to school, maybe after first period, they're feeling kind of hungry. And so we're going to talk about some solutions to that as well. So the main solution is to make breakfast part of the school day, just like lunch. So when it's there and all the students are there, it's really hard not to take advantage of it. So what breakfast after the bell does is it changes the location and the time that that meal is offered. It's actually offered after school starts and where the students are. The three main common models of breakfast after the bell that we're going to talk about today are breakfast in the classroom, grab and go breakfast, and second chance breakfast. So we are going to examine these, what they look like, what the setup looks like, what's the kind of support you need. And keep in mind that during this presentation, there's a lot of links that I believe you'll be receiving, and you'll have access to all the resources. So here are the breakfast participation numbers when breakfast after the bell is implemented. So it can be as high as 88% for breakfast in the classroom. Rates get to 59% for grab and go on average, and 58% for second chance breakfast. And these numbers are reflecting the cohort of free and reduced lunch eaters that also eat breakfast. So in the next slide, a lot of schools across the US are dealing with chronic absenteeism. It affects millions of students every year. And what we know is if students aren't going to school, they're not eating breakfast, they're not eating lunch either. It increases disadvantages to succeed by affecting dropout rates and uncertain economic futures. What we also see is the same group of kids that are affected by absenteeism are also historically affected by health disparities. So what Share Our Strength did is conduct this new research, and we looked at answering the question, can serving breakfast as part of the school day reduce chronic absenteeism? And as most of you mentioned, it can. And let's see what that looks like. So yes, it can significantly reduce chronic absenteeism by an average of 6 percentage points. So basically in your campus, if you have 22% of students who are chronically absent, you could potentially see chronic absenteeism drop to 16% after implementing breakfast after the bell, holding all other factors constant. So that means just with that change alone, it can reduce absenteeism. So now that we have a little better understanding of why we might want to implement breakfast after the bell, let's look at some of the programs. So first, and this is pretty common, most of you have maybe seen breakfast in the classroom or have heard about it. And what this is it's basically like it says, breakfast is served in the classroom and students are allowed to eat in the classroom. The bulk of the work comes from the cafeteria staff and students are responsible for classroom cleanup and trash removal. And if they're not, they need to be. So one of the most important things about this program is getting the students involved, getting them to take ownership and be part of this, helping them to know not only is this for them, but it's also something that they can get involved in, which helps them to really make it work and helps with sustainability. Something else about this program is super important to have support with your cafeteria managers, your custodial staff, teachers. You want to devise a plan that works for everyone. Teachers can play a role by recording which students take breakfast each morning, but students can also take on that role. So these are some pictures of what it looks like. What does the prep look like? So cafeteria staff are prepping the breakfast items in the cafeteria or the central kitchen. And as Ms. Lawanda mentioned, it has to be a reimbursable meal. So you're going to have your milk, your fruit, your grain items. You can have unitized breakfast. You'll have a meal count form. And there are additional breakfast options as well. It all depends on your school and your campus and what works best for you. What about distribution? How does that look? There's a variety of ways to implement it. What we have seen is, well, breakfast items are delivered to the classroom by either cafeteria workers or students. And again, if it's feasible, if it makes sense for y'all, it's good to get the students involved in this portion as well. And here's some pictures. You'll see some of the equipment because we'll talk a tiny bit about that at the end. Record keeping is important in all of these programs. We want to make sure that the numbers are correct and accurate for a lot of reasons. We want to see how many breakfasts we're going to need, and we also want to make sure we're getting reimbursed. So there's a variety of ways to do this. Cleanup. So again, the most important area, I would say, and what I hear the most about why teachers or campuses do not want to start this program. They just hear breakfast in the classroom and they think mess, this is not good, this, this is going to go, very bad. But what we have seen is when you have a plan, when you strategize and you're intentional, this is not a problem. Just like anything else in elementary schools, because it's usually in elementary schools, this model. As soon as the students are trained and on protocol and they know, what the whole structure is, we don't see a lot of problems. Startup, yes, it can be challenging, but when we get everyone on board and we have a protocol set in place, it can be very successful. So next we're going to look at grab and go. And this is served where students pick up the breakfast on the way to class. And sometimes it can already be packaged and ready in a bag, or it can be like these kiosks here, where the students pick out their items and then they check out and head to their classroom. Cafeteria staff are fully responsible for executing this model, and students are allowed to eat in the classroom or in common areas. Students are also responsible for cleaning up any breakfast trash, just like lunch trash. It's the same if you think about it. There's nothing different. We have to clean up our messes. Again, you want to work with cafeteria staff and custodians to create a trash cleanup protocol so that everything runs smoothly. So what does the prep look like for this model? Again, the cafeteria staff prep the breakfast items in the cafeteria or central kitchen. They can put the items on carts, kiosks, vending machines, or quick cafeteria line. So opening a part of the cafeteria or maybe even the entire cafeteria. And here's some more pictures of what that looks like. There's a lot of creative ways, and there is funding out there to get some of these kiosks and resources. So definitely look at our resources and we can talk about that as well. With this model, you need a point of sale system. It's super important because there's more than one area to grab and go to pick up your items. You need to make sure that record keeping is accurate, and schools must use the POS system. And here's a picture of what that looks like. Again, cleanup is essential. So have your protocol in place, make sure that you work as a team to create that so that there's buy-in. So last but not least, we're going to talk about second chance breakfast. This is really popular in middle schools and high schools for the reasons that I mentioned earlier, which is these students, when they wake up, they're usually just trying to get out the door, maybe, get ready, grab their bags. They're really not hungry until after they've been at school for a little while. So maybe by first period, second period, you can have second chance breakfast implemented during this time where the cafeteria is opened again, or you have like kiosks set up. for the picture on the left, and you have grab and go. And this works really great because everyone is kind of noticing they're hungry by then and they are definitely wanting to eat. Usually students have at least 15 minutes to eat breakfast before they go to their next class. So we're going to just look at equipment really quick. You will need cooler bags or rolling coolers or portable breakfast kiosks. They don't have to look this fancy, but you will need some equipment. You will need trash cans, heavy duty trash bags, wet wipes for cleanup. So when you're thinking about breakfast after the bell, make sure you consider the equipment needs and the different ones for each program that you choose. One item we're going to go over real quick is stakeholders. So it's super important on the front end to get the support that you need. You want to make sure that the nutrition director is on board, the superintendent is involved. At the school level, the principals really are those people and the champions at the school who will lead this and make or break the program. So if there is support, everyone's kind of on the same page and understanding the reasons we talked about of why to implement it, and then get on the same page of how it's going to look. And that could take some trial and error. So don't feel like you have to like jump in and do this perfectly. It does take some trial and error, but you can have a lot of success. One way to, when working with educators in particular, it's helpful to highlight that breakfast is more than a hunger issue. It's also an academic issue. If students don't get their basic needs met, such as food, we all know they can't learn. I know I'm fidgety if I don't get my food, so it's definitely the same, especially for children. Here's a chart of Maslow's hierarchy of needs to help solidify that point when you're talking to administrators. And there's also resources that you'll see on the left here. We have some breakfast after the bell myths. It's really good because people will come at you with, well, it's going to be so messy or blah, blah, blah. And this is really what the facts are and the statistics are about breakfast after the bell. So we have some resources there for you. Definitely want support from parents and our consumers, which are the students. Make sure that you market this well, get them involved, perhaps have taste testing, have them look at the menus, have them suggest items. We have some schools that do smoothies, and there's just a lot of different things you can do with the program. There's even some schools who have students involved in the packaging and the delivery of the breakfast program. So you can be creative and get those students involved. We have more helpful resources in the next slide, the next few slides, but I'm going to go through them quickly so that we have time to answer some of your questions. You'll see my email here. If you have questions that are not answered, please feel free to email me at jrios@strengths.org. And I am happy to look at your questions and answer a few questions before I turn it over to Dana. Okay, so the question that I see here is, for breakfast in the classroom, how is classroom staff trained to know a reimbursable meal? And are they required to have the same CEUs as cafeteria staff since they are now handling food? So the way that I've seen it implemented is everything is set up, like we said, from the cafeteria staff. Definitely they would need to have a little bit of training to know what the reimbursable meal is, but it's pretty much spelled out for them. They have a checklist sheet that shows what the students grab. So the cafeteria will know if it's reimbursable or not. So basically the instructors and the teachers, they fill out the form and then they send that to the cafeteria, and the cafeteria will double check to make sure which ones are reimbursable. Definitely a little training is involved. I'm not sure about the CEUs, but I can definitely find that out and get back to LaWanda, and she can make sure that y'all know. I'm going to take this next question and then I'm going to pass it over to Dana because I've already taken up more of my time than I was supposed to. So is breakfast after the bell usually in lieu of traditional breakfast in the cafe, or do most schools do both? Excuse me. So I believe you can do both depending on your campus. But I also have seen that when elementary schools do breakfast in the classroom, the benefit is that nobody has to do anything different. Everyone is in the classroom, including the teachers. Everyone is having the same meal. They're eating together. So there's no other, difference going on. There's no one going to the cafeteria. I have heard of schools who do both, but the programs that I've watched and I've looked at, they mainly implement like one or the other. And so definitely you can have hot items as well. It takes a little more planning, and you probably want to implement that maybe just a few days during the week and then see how that goes in terms of how many students you have. You want to make sure that you have the participation that you're expecting so you can get your reimbursed. That's all I can take for now, but we will try to get to all your questions. And I will turn this over to Dana.
Thank you, Dr. Rios. You've done a wonderful job with going over the various logistics, the ins and outs of overall breakfast participation and how it can be incorporated. I'm Dr. Dana Bing, the Assistant Director for Richmond County, and I'm more here from a personal testimony perspective, actually working in a school district that serves approximately 54 sites. 30,000 plus students per day. And basically going at it from the logistics behind actually marketing and promoting your program as far as making it happen when it comes to this being something provided in your district. As you can see on my initial slide, we approach this from the why perspective. When you're ever trying to get individuals on board, as was mentioned earlier, you want to approach things in marketing from the why perspective first. The how and the what will obviously come across in later aspects, but you first want individuals to understand why, and that's going to be the central focus. As you can see in my slide, it's going to be the students. That's what we're all here for when it comes to education, is student achievement. So we bring across an impression and a realization that breakfast is something that the students deserve. And I want to go at it from this perspective, basically from here, to get an insight from you guys with regard to your, I guess you could say, belief when it comes to barriers. Because when it comes to all of this, as far as implementation, an individual would wonder, with breakfast being as wonderful as it is, why isn't it going on much more of a regular basis at so many more sites throughout, our wonderful country? So with this polling question, we're going to ask your opinion when it comes to what you believe the primary barrier is to student breakfast participation. I'm going to give an actual minute or so here for you to think this through and give us an answer to where personally, where you are, what you believe the greatest barrier to student breakfast participation may be. You have the answers of time restrictions when we're describing the scheduling that could go on with the amount of time students are given to consume the meals, meal quality, the convenient access as far as how is it applicable for them to actually receive the meals when they're offered them, and then administrative support, which is at the site. How are the principals, the teachers, the various individuals becoming stakeholders when you're attempting to have this breakfast participation? Okay, and we've seen our results. The majority of individuals at 51% are describing time restrictions. And I see coming in at second, administrative support, convenient access at third, and meal quality coming in last, but definitely not least. Now, to touch on meal quality, this is the component that I would have to say is most subjective of all of the actual responses, because as we know, every district is different, every school site is different, every student is different. So when it comes to the actual quality of the meals, what I would always recommend are taste tests. Things, you know, as for surveys, a taste test is the best form of survey that will give you an idea specifically of what the students would like to consume. That is going to actually be very dependent on your specific situation at your site within your district. Now, the other actual aspects that were barriers kind of tie in, and if I had to rate them, I would actually go from an administrative support perspective, because as mentioned by Dr. Rios, your principals, things of that nature, your teachers are the ones who are on the ground level that are going to be implementing these actual programs and have an incredible amount of significance when it comes to the program success. So collaboration is where individuals would want to start, having the principals aware of what is going on and that these actual breakfast programs are important and can assist in student achievement. So the first thing that I did in my district was make an attempt to send out letter, various emails, just giving a description of possible breakfast initiatives. But in being honest, as I said, this is about personal testimony. It did not go over very well with regards to the amount of participation received. And that is understood, because what we have to realize, principals are very busy. They have a lot of concerns. So they may receive a lot of the different letters, a lot of emails, and not necessarily have them at the highest priority. So what it would really come down to, and I'm guilty of this as well, basically individuals tune in to WIIFM. I'm wondering if any of you have maybe tuned in to that channel, if you'd want to call it. And what that is all about, just from a human nature perspective, is what's in it for me. That is really what it comes down to. And when you are promoting or marketing your breakfast program, you do want to address these issues so that they realize that there is something for everyone. First, it starts, and this is reiterating what has already been stated by Dr. Rios, is basically an awareness of what breakfast is all about. It's often described as the most important meal of the day, and rightfully so. It not only provides important daily nutrients such as protein, fiber, calcium, carbohydrates, but it also helps improve school performance, allowing students to do better on tests, according to the Food and Nutrition Service. Well, basically, as you can even see in this, I highlighted students because we want to keep that always as our central focus whenever we're presenting this to whatever stakeholders, realizing that it's all about, as I stated initially, what they deserve. But even from this perspective, that's still food and nutrition within our department. Individuals enjoy comparison. So you want to give them examples of other districts who've actually, as this says, a district says expanded breakfast program has led to a spike in attendance. You want them to realize that this is actually going on in other places and that it is actually working. Comparison is a powerful tool when it comes to having individuals with, I guess you could say, produce buy-in. And then last but not least, you want to have a firm foundation. You want to have scientific support, as in this statement. Breakfast eaters also tend to exhibit better classroom behavior and perform better in certain subjects like math. And this is from a Harvard Medical School study, basically giving, again, a wonderful platform for them to realize that this is not something fabricated. This is a reality and something that they should be aware of. Once again, you cannot overemphasize the benefits, as have been addressed somewhat prior, but they're still, in summary, the same things that every teacher, administrator would want to incorporate into their environment. That is an increase in attendance. Now, having been a teacher for 10 years plus, you can definitely get me on board when you start describing any intervention that can lead to better behavior. So we want to emphasize that within any school setting. students doing better on tests. We realize, and definitely within our nutrition services department, that a lot of the principals and the various administration would want to around standardized test taking time to make sure that their students are receiving breakfast. And we're wondering, well, why wouldn't that be the mentality throughout the entire year as opposed to just doing the standardized tests? So the overall benefit is a realization of improving school performance, enhancing student achievement. And this is really what it's all about. And specifically, as I give this example about Richmond County, you want them to realize what is going on, because a lot of them do not have the knowledge of the current status within the district. And this is kind of an average from what I've seen in various studies and research throughout the nation. In Richmond County in particular, less than 50% of the students eat breakfast daily. And that is in comparison to 84% during lunch participation. That can bring a lot of insight to your administration that something needs to occur. And they can have an actual reality check that this can be something that is obviously room for improvement and growth. So moving forward, you want there to be self-efficacy. You want them to be allowed to do something that's not going to require maybe a lot of resources, a lot of financial aspects, things of that nature, which can all be barriers. So a simple breakfast initiative, this is an example, could be making passing through the breakfast serving line standard to the student school entrance. Does not require too much excess resources. It basically makes it to where it's protocol for before the students are going to their homeroom classes, they're just required to pass through the breakfast serving area. And you would be surprised how much the participation increases with just that ever so slight implementation. So these are the type things when you're being creative and you're coming up with initiatives to increase your breakfast participation that you want to incorporate so that it's nothing overwhelming and things can be implemented and prevent procrastination, because the mentality is better sooner than later. If it comes down to, well, we have to wait for this equipment to be ordered, or we have to wait until we receive this or that, then there could be potential for that procrastination. But things of this nature can be implemented pretty much immediately. And as I've said here, it's better sooner than later when it comes to actually looking at the well-being of our students. So options, again, as Dr. Rios has addressed, basically options can be defined as the definition of wealth. So when you're doing this, you want to meet with the principals, the administration, and give them various options so that you can customize the programs that you select to their specific school site. For instance, in elementary schools, cafeteria pickup zone for homeroom teachers to escort students to class. It basically ties in with the initiative I just described, to which the students, they're passing through the serving areas, they meet in a select area of the cafeteria, and the homeroom teacher at whatever designated time they choose come down and escort the students from that cafeteria spot to their homeroom class. Once again, very limited resources. It can allow for overall participation without a lot of the other aspects when it comes to ordering equipment, financial aspects, and things of that nature. And once again, these are all just various options that have been used in our county that we have definitely seen successful. For middle school and high schools, grab and go breakfast carts placed at alternative entrance areas. Definitely a wonderful option, as we saw with one of the barriers. Convenience with regard to the access was one of them, and this can help to eliminate that. We always keep in mind, though, the presentation, because as we're doing things, this is an example of the breakfast carts that we use in Richmond County. And we realize that we want to make these a pleasant place for them to actually go to and receive their breakfast items. We've branded our actual school district when it comes to our nutrition department. So these things placed at various locations undoubtedly increases the access for students to be able to go and receive that breakfast meal. As mentioned again earlier, and I would love to reiterate this, in order to have this buy-in, you have to make it convenient, and this could be for the custodians or whoever it is that's a part of that school site. So you want to make sure that you're using user-friendly food products. Upon doing this, when it came to breakfast in the classroom, second chance breakfast, things of that nature, we made sure we didn't have a menu including syrups, basic items that could cause a lot of debris or have problems for the sanitation side of things. So please, when you're doing this, make sure that you focus on things and products that are user friendly so that all of this can go smoothly. The students, through your taste tests and surveys, can still receive quality meals, but also the individuals that are implementing these programs are not placed in a situation to have more work placed upon them. So again, as I said before, I'm here for personal testimony. Dr. Rios went very specifically into all of the various things that can take place, but in summary, we want to come back to the why. When you're presenting this to your school administration, your principals, your superintendent, your board of education, whoever it may be, you want to have them get a reality that this is about student achievement. This is what the students deserve when it comes to breakfast. Whether the student is late because of traffic or the bus drivers or their parents' driving management skills, you have to realize and put it to them, because a lot of the elementary schools do not drive themselves, as well as middle schools and also some of the high schools, that irregardless of this, they deserve breakfast. You basically have to put it from a perspective of whether misbehaving due to manifested frustrations of adverse living situations, because I've seen that happen. And this is just a keeping it real type scenario to where breakfast can be used as punishment for children who may not be, acting up to the level that the teacher is expecting. But we don't know what goes on at students' homes. We don't know what happened before they got out of that car or left their home environment before they came to school. So once again, it should not be a punishment. They still deserve breakfast in any and every circumstance. And whether unexposed to the benefits of breakfast due to limited access, if you're in an area with low socioeconomic status, whether you're in an area that could be a food desert zone, because this could very well be the only meal when it comes to their school meals that they're receiving throughout the day, you have to realize, and it can never be overemphasize, the fact that all of your students, each and every one, they deserve breakfast. So I'm hoping that during my segment, you've gotten a true understanding when it comes to emphasizing the why, using the strategies described in the various resources by Dr. Rios to have it to where we're giving our students breakfast, the actual wonderful meal that they deserve. At this time, getting close towards the end, I want to do the same to allow questions, things of sort. Are there any questions that I could possibly be able to answer or address? Okay, and I can see a question where we're describing that an individual states they have administration and teachers that don't want to do it. That goes back into the aspect of why. Why are they teaching? Why are they administrators? What do they want for their school? And I'm hoping that you would get a unanimous vote when it came to student achievement. That's what we all strive for. That's what the field of education is all about. So in presenting to them the actual benefits, and as I said, if you have to get specific with the teachers describing how it can make that classroom be a better behaved group of students, that is going to get buy-in. That is going to, when you describe to the administration, giving them options that don't entail a lot of extra demands, that is going to give buy-in. I see a question. One of the main hardships I see at our sites is teachers do not submit breakfast counts. How can I help to educate staff in the importance of this? One of the things that we implemented within our district is the actual attendance aspect in the morning, so that whether you're receiving it from the bookkeeper or from the homeroom teachers themselves, that if it's, I'm assuming this could be a breakfast in the classroom situation or something of that nature, you're going to have a specific number that the cafeteria manager will provide so that when they are doing these counts, it'll come down to how many they've asked for, and then you're able to actually get a count on the leftovers, so that it'll be a process on one sheet that's dropped off along with the actual meals, and this can be addressed on a daily basis. And I see another one. I'm like I was saying earlier, I know time is limited, but I still want to try to address the ones that I can get to. Can we get links to help persuade administrators? Yes, and you can definitely get that. Once again, what Dr. Rios has provided will undoubtedly be a platform to give information to help persuade the administrators, because it's founded in research. You've heard from what I've described, testimony. So if comparison is needed to persuade administrators, all of these things are going to be your tools that you're going to be able to use to persuade administrators, who are essential to the success of any breakfast program. Unfortunately, it is getting very close to the end, and I'm going to have to, as much as I do not want to, I want to continue this conversation, but I'm going to have to turn it back over to Dr. Morse. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Bing and Dr. Rios, for all that great information. We want to wrap up by reminding everyone that next week is a big week in school breakfast. March 2nd through the 6th is actually National School Breakfast Week. The School Nutrition Association's 2020 campaign encourages everyone to support school breakfast using hashtag NSBW2020. Their theme is school breakfast, out of this world. This is actually some of the clip art that you see that's available through SNA's website. And they're hoping that through this theme, it will be sure to captivate students and stakeholders with how your breakfast program is blasting off into new territory. If you need more information or resources, be sure to check out SNA's site that's devoted to hashtag NSBW2020. And we've got that link provided for you there at the bottom of the screen. ICN has recently released several new or revised resources and courses. First, Grab in 5 handouts. These feature 5 ways to incorporate healthy practices within the home and community. Families may find these handouts useful when speaking or when seeking strategies for incorporating gardening, recycling, good nutrition, physical activity, and more. The next resource that has been released, it's actually a couple of those booklets that fall under the employee health and personal hygiene for schools. These are one for staff and one for managers. Although the incidence of foodborne illness in school nutrition programs is very low, because of the thorough food safety procedures practiced by school nutrition employees, there are still a few risks that exist. These guides actually highlight basic practices that school nutrition employees can use to prevent spreading pathogens. ICN has also launched Food Allergies in School Nutrition Programs General Food Allergies. This is an online course. This course is part 1 of a 4-part series that's designed to give you tips and tools for preparing and serving safe food for children with food allergies. This part discusses food allergies, food intolerances, as well as handling a food allergy emergency. The STAR webinar series is also available in our eLearning portal for those who are not able to attend the live training. The webinar recordings can now be accessed and watched at your convenience. To access them, click Webinars, and then in the Catalogs category box, you want to search what is available. The latest 12 webinars are available to watch, and you can receive a certificate upon completion of those. Each month, the newest webinar will be added and the oldest one will roll off. We are really excited to offer our users yet another way to receive professional development. This is just a final reminder that today's webinar has been recorded and can also be viewed on the ICN website at theicn.org/star. Remember, at the end, as soon as Tom Hunter closes out the webinar, you will receive a link to take you to the survey for this webinar. Please take a moment and complete that evaluation. That will allow you to complete the survey, and we will receive that information. Thanks again to our speakers, Dr. Janine Rios and Dr. Dana Bing, and this concludes today's webinar. Have a great day.